You already sent the message. The interview is done. The test is submitted. The thing you were worried about has happened. And now there's nothing left to do except wait to find out how it went. And somehow, this part is worse. Not the thing itself, the gap after it. The space where nothing is happening and you have no control over anything and all you can do is sit with it. Waiting is its own kind of suffering. Not a dramatic one, just a low, relentless one. There's a reason it feels that way. The brain doesn't process uncertainty the way it processes other things. Most situations, even bad ones, have a quality the mind can eventually work with. Something happened, you know what it is. You can start to respond to it, adjust to it, build around it. Uncertainty doesn't offer any of that. There's no fact to process, no outcome to adapt to, just a gap between now and knowing, and the brain sitting inside that gap with nothing useful to do. That's the first problem. Waiting combines two things the mind handles badly on their own: not knowing what's coming and having no ability to affect what happens next. Put them together, and the experience is genuinely distressing, not in a vague emotional sense, but in a measurable physiological one. Cortisol rises, attention narrows. The same stress response that fires for real threats fires for the absence of information. Uncertainty reads as danger. That's not an overreaction. It is the brain doing what it always did in environments where not knowing what was coming next meant you were probably vulnerable. The second problem is what the mind does to fill the gap. It generates scenarios, almost always negative ones. You think about how the call might go, the email might read, the conversation might land. And because the brain weighs potential losses more heavily than potential gains, the bad versions get more attention and more detail than the good ones. You're not being pessimistic. The brain is just running its standard math, which treats the downside of being wrong about a threat as much more costly than the upside of being right about an opportunity. So it rehearses the bad outcomes more, prepares for them more, and gives them more airtime. Which means by the time the actual answer arrives, you may have already lived through several versions of the worst case, and none of them happened. But the stress of running them was completely real. There is a detail from research on this that's worth sitting with. Studies on people waiting for medical results, job decisions, things with real stakes, found that anxiety was often higher during the wait than in the actual moment of receiving bad news. The waiting itself, in some cases, was the hardest part, not the outcome. Bad news, at least, is something. The brain can grieve it, file it, begin to reorganize around it. Uncertainty keeps everything suspended. The emotional processing can't start because there's nothing confirmed to process yet, so it just runs and runs, circling the same unknowns, generating the same scenarios, finding no resolution because no resolution is available yet. Time distorts too. When the mind is anxious and focused inward on an unresolved situation, the internal clock speeds up. More mental pulses, longer felt duration. 5 minutes of waiting after a difficult conversation can feel much longer than 5 minutes of something absorbing. The quality of the time changes. It gets heavier. Most people assume that they'd rather know, even if what they find out is bad, and research backs that up. Given the choice between prolonged uncertainty and confirmed bad news, people frequently chose the bad news. At least it ends the waiting. At least it gives the brain something solid to work with. The waiting is its own problem, separate from whatever the outcome turns out to be. That's the part that's easy to miss. You tell yourself that you're worried about the result, and maybe you are, but a lot of what feels painful in the waiting has nothing to do with the answer and everything to do with not knowing itself. The answer, when it comes, usually lands softer than the wait. It almost always does.